Hey, how do you get a bunch of Mega Man X fans at each other's throats? It's simple. Sit them down and ask them if Mega Man X5 is a good game. They'll be fighting in no time. Now this is RETROspective, that series where I talk about games I played as a kid, wanted to play as a kid, or that I remember from when I was a kid and see how they stack up today. And damn, was I lucky at age 12 when I got the Mega Man X collection on GameCube. Mega Man X1 through X6 on one disc? Oh yeah, that's the good shit. And Mega Man X5 in particular caught my attention. Don't get me wrong, X1 through X4 are great, and X6 is a game I've already talked about on YouTube in depth before. But Mega Man X5 really did always fascinate me. Sure, I was originally more excited to play the legendary SNES titles when I got the compilation, but shortly before getting the collection, I saw the Great Clement's Mega Man X5 Let's Play of it. And my goodness, nothing gets you hyped up for an old video game quite like watching a person on the internet talk about it. Stuff We Play is made possible in part by our YouTube channel members and Patreon patrons, who support us for as low as $1 a month. Learn more about that in the description below. You know, I don't even remember why I wanted the X collection. I think it's because by that point, I already had the Anniversary collection for the GameCube, along with Mega Man Powered Up and Maverick Hunter X on PSP. But like, I can't remember if I got it for Christmas or a birthday or just bought it using allowance money. All I know is that Mega Man X5, for the longest time, was one of my favorite Mega Man games, period. And then I grew up, and then it wasn't. For the past few years, I've actually flip-flopped back and forth on whether it's a good game or not to me. But I'm finally here today to not only go through my thoughts in depth, but also explain why this is not actually a bad game. And full disclaimer, this is my own subjective opinion that I've come to after much processing. You're welcome to disagree. Tell me your thoughts in the comments below, because I really do like reading your thoughts on my videos. Anyways, funny enough for this video, I didn't even touch the X collection. Partially, that's because I no longer own my GameCube copy, and instead just own the admittedly superior PS2 version. I didn't even end up touching that thing though. I did my multiple playthroughs of X5 for this video, using Mega Man X Legacy Collection 2 on Nintendo Switch, an original PS1 copy on real hardware, and using a PC-based emulator. The gameplay experience wasn't really different between any of these various versions, I just thought it'd be cool to do this for the sake of variety. And I must stress, before anyone gets upset in the comments about the emulator thing, don't worry, I own this game, and it looks wonderful on a PS1 flip-top screen, probably because it used sprite-based graphics instead of those chunky, ugly PS1 polygons. So this video is going to be split into a few sections. We're going to cover the story of X5, then dive into the structure, gameplay, and presentation all at once, then swerve left briefly to try to untangle the Mega Man X timeline, and then end off not just on my verdict on the game itself, but also my thoughts on the best way to play it. But before we do any of that, I know I've mentioned this in previous videos, but Mega Man X5 was originally planned to be the final game in the X series. This title was supposed to wrap everything up, do some cool experimental stuff, and hopefully be a high note for Mega Man X to go off on, while then series head Keiji Inafune shifted his focus on the then in development Mega Man Zero series for the Game Boy Advance. It was gonna be a fantastic finale, until it wasn't a finale at all. There are 3 games in the X series after this, and that wasn't Inafune's doing. And also, like, I know there's no need for spoiler alerts for a PlayStation 1 game, but spoiler alert, you know Zero, Blue-Blighted Sword Boy? Yeah, he dies in X5. Now, X6, X7, and X8 were not Inafune's doing. And also, Zero is back in all of them. And I know a lot of series fans probably wish those games didn't exist. Though, to that I'd say, hey, X8 is actually kind of dope, y'all. But what about X5 though? Well, story-wise, it's pretty intense. In the year 2100 and late, the evil Maverick Sigma has taken on his soon-to-be final form. A virus that can infect other Reploid robots and make them go absolutely batshit insane. Sigma wants to defeat not only Mega Man X-Zero and their band of Maverick Hunters, but also exterminate humanity. However, in his current state, he is weak, and he does not have a suitable body available to use. At the beginning of X5, we see him enlist the help of Dynamo, who becomes a faithful henchman. He needs Dynamo's help for his plan to corrupt the systems of the space colony Eurasia. Above the Earth in orbit, this seems to be a bit of a home for humanity well above the planet. However, by this point in the 22nd century, Eurasia is an aging space colony deeply in need of renovations. Sigma's plan is to use this as a chance to corrupt the colony's systems and infect it with the Sigma virus, and then send it on a crash course towards Earth. If successful, the effects would be catastrophic for humanity. But Sigma needs to build up to this. He appears before X and Zero in the intro stage, in a very weak and easy to defeat form. And indeed, he is taken down easily, but this is all part of his plan. Destroying this initial form causes the Sigma virus to be unleashed across the planet, corrupting various Reploids and setting his master plan into motion. From there, the Maverick Hunters, under the lead of Commander Cygnus, who, has no connection to Sigma despite the similar sounding name, form a counter plan. X and Zero must go defeat 4 Mavericks who are guarding various resources to gain parts for an Enigma cannon. If successful, though the cannon can only be used once, it will destroy the colony and the world will be saved. Good fucking luck on having that happen. If the cannon succeeds, then congrats, you get to go straight to the final Sigma fortress and the day is saved. But I have never had that happen. It's RNG, and the chance of the cannon succeeding is so low that this may as well just be a completely predetermined set of events. What will most likely happen instead is that the Enigma cannon will fail and just dent the colony with its blast. And so you'll have to fight 4 more Mavericks to gain pieces to retrofit a space shuttle, which Zero will then pilot and ram straight into the space colony. There are 2 issues with that plan though. First off, if you want, you can take on the second 4 Mavericks at the start of the game if you'd like to. I mean, it's Mega Man. As per usual, there are 8 bosses to choose from at the beginning. You can pick up the cannon and shuttle parts in any order you want. But let's say you get those shuttle parts. Well, good for you. It's a shame then, the shuttle succeeding is still left up to random chance. I shit you not. Even if you do everything the game says you need to do to get the good ending, there's still a very high chance that you won't just because the game decided not to be nice that day. And if the shuttle fails, then Zero gets corrupted with the Sigma virus, which then mutates into a more potent Zero virus, and Zero turns evil. This takes effect on the gameplay side of things too, by stripping away your ability to play as Zero. So if you prefer Zero's close range sword slinging to X's long range shooting, then that sucks for you. You're using X for the rest of the game unless you want to keep resetting until the shuttle actually works. I swear, even with all the parts gathered, there's only like a 50% chance of the shuttle working. And I mean, yeah, there's not any math or anything behind that, but that's what it feels like. Things progress pretty smoothly after that point though. The Maverick Hunters find Sigma's fortress, which looks like a Mega Man Battle Network theme park. You then fight a couple of bosses ripped out of other Mega Man games, and then X and Zero have to fight each other. Whether it's because of Zero turning evil, or X just being worried about Zero and Zero refusing to step down from the mission, if you're on the good ending path, it's still an intense fight with fantastic music. Also, the sheer amount of build up to this fight just makes it so cool to me. By this point, an X vs Zero fight had been built up over the course of several X games, and it's just so cool to see it happen here. Shame it's kind of easy though, especially as X can obtain the secret ultimate armor in the stage right beforehand. Even without it though, in base Mega Man X5, it's not nearly as intense as I remember it being as a kid. From there though, it's off to fight Big Bad Sigma himself. Once you reach him, he reveals that he didn't work alone here, and I'm not talking about Dynamo. No, it appears that Sigma was helped by the digitized soul of an old man. And that old man was Dr. Wily from the classic Mega Man series, because of course it is. With that knowledge in tow, it's time to kick his ass. After defeating Sigma himself, you'll get one of 3 endings. If the shuttle failed, then X beats Sigma, but the space colony crashes to Earth. Some of humanity manages to escape underground though, and X lives to help the Maverick Hunters rebuild the planet. But he is also heavily damaged in the final fight with Sigma. Thankfully, he's aided in his repairs by the digitized AI of his own creator, Dr. Thomas Light. I'm assuming to prevent X from suffering the robot equivalent of trauma. In the process of helping repair him, Light wipes Megaman X's memory of Zero, his fighting partner and best friend. If the shuttle succeeds and then you defeat Sigma though, then one of two things will happen. If you go down this route and defeat him as X, then Zero will, unfortunately, be killed in the final battle. But the planet will be saved. To honor the memory of his fallen friend and continue to fight for justice, X takes Zero's Z-Saber and vows to continue fighting to make the world a better place. If you defeat Sigma as Zero though, Zero still dies and the events of X's ending happen. But you get to see Zero's final moments from his perspective. You see him realize that he was in fact Dr. Wily's final greatest creation. But by fighting alongside X, the creation of Dr. Wily's greatest rival, and fighting for good, he defied what was supposed to be his destiny. Zero wasn't evil. He didn't wreak havoc on humanity in the end. Instead, he ultimately tried to help humanity. He met people and Reploids and went on adventures, and now, at what seems to be his end, Sigma, the greatest foe he ever went against, is finally defeated. Zero realizes that though he is dying, he has lived a full life. Now that's great and deep and all, and of course the intent from here is that Zero would somehow be repaired and rebooted over the course of 100 years or so, and that would lead into the Mega Man Zero series, but that ultimately had to be rewritten thanks to Mega Man X6 coming out not even a year after X5 and changing how all of those events played out. It basically seems that in the final versions of Zero's ending in the X series, he's sealed away in a capsule by choice of his own, but that's X6 shenanigans. There's a reason why some Mega Man fans consider none of the endings of X5 any sort of canon. At the very least, X5's plot has a really good sense of stakes. Save humanity, stop Zero if he turns evil, lay the smackdown on Sigma for the final time, supposedly. And I'm happy to say that a lot of the game itself feels really awesome and intense to play through. I gotta say y'all, if there's one area where X5 is probably one of the best in the X series, it's in stage theming. Underwater submarine chases, electrical labs, rose gardens, moving military convoys. The first Sigma stage is even outright a rave party version of Quickman stage from Mega Man 2. I seriously thought this was the coolest thing the first time I played the game, even if it's really a sign of the times when this thing came out. And for a game that is now 21 years old, it looks fantastic. It looks so nice and vibrant at times, with a styling that still conveys the darker tone that the X series has compared to the classic series. And the same goes for the music as well. Some of my favorite selections from the soundtrack here are the boss theme, the Skyverse theme, Matrex's theme, and the theme of the first few Sigma Fortress stages. And as per usual for a retrospective episode, you've been hearing selections from the soundtrack in the background throughout this video. But also, just listen to those Maverick names. Those boss names are rather famous. Or should I say, infamous. I mean, come on, this game gave the world the best Mega Man boss name ever, Duff McWhalen. As much as I love those names though, they're only around in the original North American X Collection releases. If you play this game in any other form, including in the recent Legacy collections, then you'll be stuck with names like Burn Dino Rex and Tidal Whale, which aren't bad. The boss names were all changed when Mega Man X5 was brought over to America from Japan to be a bit more inspired by Guns N' Roses. I mean, goodness, they named the Rose-themed boss Axel the Red. That's some JoJo's Bizarre Adventure kind of stuff there. And with that came, well, Duff McWhalen. Seriously, I love that name so much. No Maverick name will ever beat Duff McFucking Whalen. And though most of my gameplay footage will display differently, I'll be using those American names throughout this video because, well, I just prefer them. McWhalen's stage is also really unique too, for better or worse. In this stage, you're either chasing or running away from a submarine, called the U-555. And yes, that is named after the captured German U-505 submarine from World War II, which you should totally check out next time you're in Chicago. Anyways, these submarine sections are all auto-scrollers, and they're kind of slow. I like the mini-boss fights against the submarine though. Whether you're shooting at it as X or slashing away as Zero, it's a satisfying fight, even if the chases are slow slogs. What's probably oddest here is the background music. It's not original. Duff McWhalen's stage theme is just a remix of Bubble Crab's theme from Mega Man X2. And like, it's not a bad rendition of that music track, but in the beta version of X5, there was actually a completely original theme here. And while that original theme perhaps isn't as driving and nostalgic as the Bubble Crab remix, it's actually a really good tune and it captures the underwater ambience of McWhalen's level better in my opinion. And also, our favorite big blubberbot here is the only Maverick who got this treatment in X5's development. All the other stages do have original music tracks, and I don't get why McWhalen's was replaced with a remix. But this isn't the only case of throwbacks to earlier Mega Man titles in X5, and I dare say it gets so bad in the Sigma Fortress that it just comes off as a rehash to me. Sigma Stage 1, as I said earlier, is just Quick Man stage from Mega Man 2, complete with insta-kill lasers. But you can also freeze time to easily slip past them by using Dark Dizzy's weapon, which itself is also a Mega Man 2 reference, being literally just Flashman's Time Stopper weapon. Then there's the boss of that stage, the Shadow Devil. It's just a take on the iconic Yellow Devil boss from Mega Man 1. And y'all, these devil class robots, am I right? Like, they're iconic, I know, but after they just flat out brought back the Yellow Devil in Mega Man 11 along with him appearing in Smash Bros, I'll be honest, every time I go back through the Mega Man series and I see a devil robot boss, I just think to myself, ugh, not again. It's like whenever I play through a Sonic game and I see yet another version of Green Hill Zone. The Shadow Devil here though is a fun fight, especially as X. Besides, when it's low on health, it turns into Wily Machine 6 from, well, Mega Man 6. But what's the best special weapon to beat them with? Well, that's simple. Squid Adler's Thunder Weapon, which is actually just a new spin on Elecman's weapon from Mega Man 1. Though, unlike Elecman's weapon, it spawns little electrical balls that go along the ground and ceiling when used, so okay, I'll give that one a pass. The Thunder Beam also does decent damage on the boss of Sigma Stage 2, which is just the face wall boss from Mega Man X1 Sigma Fortress. By the way, did you know this thing is just called Rangda Bangda? What the hell kind of a name is that? Do with that info as you please. There are some other smaller references to past games throughout X5 as well. Even the final boss fight is a rehash. Sigma's first phase follows a very similar format to his first proper phase in Mega Man X1, with him hopping off around walls and such. And his second form is based on Gamma from Mega Man 3 on NES. Thankfully though, unlike the Gamma fight, he can't be defeated in one hit, though that secret ultimate armor X gets will really let you make quick work of him. Actually, the fact that you can snag that armor or the secret Black Zero upgrade for Zero, both of which give all sorts of crazy attack and defense buffs from a secret Dr. Light capsule in the Sigma Fortress, also reminds me a bit of Mega Man X2. That game featured a secret Dr. Light capsule in the Sigma Fortress that gave X the Shoryuken uppercut from Street Fighter. Speaking of moves for X, there are only 3 special weapons throughout X5 that I really use much outside of boss encounters. There are the aforementioned Dark Dizzy and Squid Adler weapons, and also the one from Grizzly Slash. When charged up, this thing forms a pretty nice shield. Oh, actually, let's talk about Squid Adler for a sec. His stage has to be one of the worst levels in the entire Mega Man X series. It's infamous, because it starts you off on a ride bike, which alone should usually mean it's going to be at least somewhat ass. But what really made this level go down in infamy with Mega Man X fans is that you can die via a bottomless pit before the ready text leaves the screen. But if you really want this ride bike section to become just that much more infuriating, then try to obtain the Dr. Light capsule on this stage. See, like in the other Mega Man X games, there are Dr. Light capsules that contain optional armor upgrades that will upgrade Mega Man X's abilities permanently spread around the game. Usually there is only one set of armor pieces per game, not counting Mega Man X3, which had 2 if you include the secret gold armor parts. Well, Mega Man X5 has 3 different armors you can get for X in normal play, And if we're talking about total armor sets in general, that number is bumped up to 5. We've already talked about the ultimate armor in Black Zero, and you can only have one or the other, either by inputting a code while selecting the character of your choice at the beginning of the game, or by getting the aforementioned secret Dr. Light capsule in the Sigma Fortress. Personally, I'd say to go the latter route, because if you start the game normally and choose X, you just get given the 4th armor, which is a slightly altered version of his armor from Mega Man X4. This allows you to hover briefly and shoot a large charge shot that leaves a residual blast. Also importantly, it allows you to charge up your special weapons from the very beginning of the game. If you choose to start off as Zero, you won't get the 4th armor, though Zero will get a shotgun blast, which I mean, would be great if this were Mega Man X6, where that thing is way overpowered. But here in X5, it's a good bit weaker, and it even has a bit of a charge up time. Seriously, if you're playing through X5, just choose X at the start and revel in your early game armor. Seriously, there is no reason to play as Unarmored X except in Sigma Stage 3, since you need to be playing as Unarmored X to be able to get the ultimate armor capsule. Anyways, as you go through the game in normal play, there are 2 different armor sets to collect parts for. There's the Falcon armor, which can't charge special weapons, but can let you fly and damage enemies while you do so. It's low-key broken, but also high-key fun to screw around with. The next armor is the Gaia armor. This one just doesn't let you use special weapons, like, at all. But it does let you cling to walls, gives you a super powerful charge shot that can destroy certain blocks, and it makes you immune from instant death spikes. Like seriously, you can just stand on them and everything. The game even makes you do this to obtain certain heart tanks, which as always extend your life bar permanently. Now, this sounds great in concept, and in theory, this should be awesome. Mega Man X8, which mind you came out 4 years later, also had 2 armor sets, and you could swap parts between them and just like in most other X games, use armor parts as soon as you obtained them. And that just makes too much sense, don't it? In previous titles and all the games after X6, Dr. Light was just a pre-recorded hologram program that dispenses X goodies. In X5 and X6 though, the old bastard is a sentient AI created from the Google Drive uploaded soul of the long-deceased doctor. And please, just don't ask me how that works. For security reasons, the good doctor's AI makes it so that you now need all 4 parts of an armor to get to use any of the upgrades. And also you can't swap parts like in X8. What doesn't help either is that the process of unlocking armor pieces here is actually pretty railroaded. If you choose X at the start, you will for sure have the 4th armor, and that's great. But then you have to do some backtracking throughout the canon parts focus stages, as those are the only stages where the Falcon armor parts are. And if you want 100% the game, you're gonna have to do that because you absolutely need the Falcon armor to be able to get the Gaia armor. As far as I can tell, one of the upgrades for the Gaia armor requires the Falcon armor's flying ability. Also, fiddly enough, all the Gaia armor pieces are in the later shuttle stages. Anyways, some of these armor capsules are just so damn annoying to get to. Like, how do you think you blow up this wall to get the capsule on Duff McWhalen stage? I mean, surely you should be able to get it on your first playthrough, right? Again, that would just make too much sense. You have to bring back X to shoot at it using Duff McWhalen's own weapon. That's right, there's mandatory backtracking here. And while it could be argued that there was always some degree of it in the X series, I don't think it was ever that bad before this point. It's funny how a game that so quickly allows you to get to the final fortress stage can also give you such a runaround to 100% it. No, I'm serious, if you start off the game, you could just launch the cannon and go straight to the Sigma Fortress, even if you're more than likely going to get the bad ending. Anyways, Duff McWhalen's capsule isn't the only annoying one to get. While I love the aesthetic and gravity switching puzzles of Dark Dizzy stage, this level has 2 major flaws. First off, the first half of it lags like hell. Still fun though, there are at least 3 different ways you can tackle this moving platform section to grab this refillable sub-tank at the end of it. And I love that. The second big flaw though is this Dr. Light capsule. You have to use Izzy Glow's weapon to guide a little firefly perfectly through a small maze to blow up a wall. And if you run out of weapon energy, then the devs have conveniently put some instant death spikes there so you can kill your character and start again, and that's just annoying. At least lives are basically pointless here. If you lose all of them and get a game over, you can just restart from your last checkpoint instead of going back to the start of the stage, like in a lot of the previous Mega Man games. This honestly makes X5 a bit of a step down difficulty-wise from standard Mega Man fare, though that's not necessarily a bad thing, just kind of interesting, and I say that full well knowing that X4 and X6 kind of did the same thing. But yeah, those light capsules. The worst, and goodness have I been waiting to rag on this, is in Squid Adler's stage. There we go, I mentioned it earlier, and we're finally back here. This ride bike section already sucked ass. It made the stage my second least favorite in the entire series, only being beaten out by the awfulness of Gigavolt Man-O-War stage in X8, which funny enough is also a ride bike stage. And you know it's bad because, well, the second half of Adler's stage is fun enough, featuring these doors you'll unlock by hitting switches in these timing-based puzzles. It even has these rescuable Reploids, which give you extra lives and optional equipable parts that you can add to your characters between stages. They're actually scattered throughout several stages in the game, but they really just seem to be everywhere in the second half of Squid Adler's stage. Fun fact, I don't think I touched the X5's part system once before reaching adult age. And now that I know about it, yeah, I can kind of break certain parts of the game in half. But hey, it is fun to play around with and gives X5 a bit of replay value. Okay, enough stalling. Time to talk about that absolutely dreadful first half of Squid Adler stage. You have to jump over pits or use this dash maneuver with your ride bike to break through certain walls, and the timing can be borderline pixel perfect. Adding on to this though, is this set of 8 glowing orbs. There are exactly 8 of them, and you need to both collect all 8 of them and maneuver perfectly on 1 life with all of them in tow to reach this door at the end of the ride bike section, which you then have to shoot the orbs at in order to blow it up and reach the light capsule. And like in X5's defense, you can choose to skip this stage, and that's fine. It's just one stage, you can still reach the Sigma Fortress no problem, and you will have a chance to get the good ending. I mean, yeah, it is a slightly reduced chance at that. Who am I kidding? This is just not good game design here. Oh yeah, but you can skip it, it's just no excuse for a level to have dumpster tier design. And if you do skip it, you'll lose out on your chance to complete the Falcon armor, and in turn, the Gaia armor, along with, of course, Squid Adler's super useful special weapon. You have no idea how many game overs I got here. It sucked. It just sucked so badly. You're welcome. So, as you can tell, I have a lot of thoughts about X5, its place in the X series, and what it does to try to separate itself from past games. And there are some other interesting additions as well. There's a 16-hour countdown timer, with the game taking an hour off of it every time you enter and exit a stage. The timer stops either once you reach the Sigma Fortress or once it hits 0, at which point you are forced to fire the rocket. And yes, that even applies to super short playable sequences, such as these mid-game fights against Dynamo. Bosses also have levels. Like, I don't mean stages, I mean RPG-esque levels. These range from 1 to 99. The closer to 0 the timer is, the higher level the bosses you fight are. This also ups the number of rare parts you can get from their stages, and honestly, okay, it's kind of cool. My only issue is in the boss rush in the final Sigma stage, where all the boss 3 fights feature them at around level 99. They aren't even that much more difficult than their first encounters, they just have long ass health bars. Thankfully, I can just beat them down sideways by spamming the Ultimate Armor's Giga Attack. There's also a completely optional training stage that features easy enemies and an easy encounter with Mega Man X4's Magma Dragoon boss, and I mean, I guess that's pretty cool. It's just there to get you acquainted with controls, it's basically just a tutorial stage. But still, it's purely optional. What's unfortunately not optional though, is Alia. Alia is the Maverick Hunter's navigator, and she is by far the worst addition to Mega Man X5. In the following X games, she's thankfully purely optional to interact with, but here, nah. She will, seemingly at random, multiple times a stage, just stop the game in its tracks to tell you some mundane BS about controls or stage hazards or whatever. And this happens in every stage, every single one of them. I mean, well, except the Sigma Fortress, thankfully. But despite that small act of mercy, it still just gets on my nerves so much. We get it, Alia. We can hang from ropes. We can wall jump. falling blocks can probably damage us. The sky is blue. Zero's breasts are green. My Patreon is cheap, and the folks who back me on there are listed here. Alia breaks the pace so badly that for a long time, I blamed her for why I came to just not care for X5. But as we've seen, there are other things that hold it back from being a truly great X game. And there's more I could touch on as well, both on things I love and hate. Matrix's stage has this instant death lava dodging segment that always keeps me on my toes, but Sigma Stage 4 brings back annoying ass disappearing blocks from the classic series. On the flip side, songs such as Zero's themes and the remix of the Yellow Devil theme are amazing, and I especially love the remix of Zero's theme that's in the intro. But really weirdly, that theme is exclusive to the international release. The Japanese version of X5 had an exclusive anime-esque vocal intro theme that was for some reason titled Monkey. But the international theme somehow just fits the tone and vibe of this being the supposedly final X game so much better to me. Mega Man X5 is many things. An enigma, a mixed bag, a game that I feel would have been a good send-off despite its many issues. Don't get me wrong though, it's a dip in quality compared to the previous games, especially coming off of X4. I mean, I know I haven't talked about it much, but Mega Man X4 was amazingly tight and fun, and it's one of my favorite X games, only being beaten out in quality in my opinion by X1. That game also featured anime cutscenes, which despite their piss poor English voice acting, was just more fun to watch than the still images and text walls of X5 and X6. What I'm saying is that X5 is a game I enjoy, but it is not a great game. And I know that's going to be a divisive opinion. Just look at this poll I put up recently. It says something that so many people just describe their thoughts on X5 as meh. But Mega Man X5 is still a game I'm glad to have played when I did. But you don't need to play it. Not in any official form anyways. And yeah, keyword official. Believe it or not, there is a fan-made hack of X5 that's literally called Mega Man X5 Improvement. You can apply it to any bin-Q format ripped US copy of X5, which I'm sure you all got from official copies like me, right? You wouldn't download a PlayStation, would you? Anyways, this hack does everything implied by that name. First and most importantly, if you collect all 8 cannon shuttle parts from defeating all 8 Mavericks, you're just guaranteed the good ending. As it should have been. Conversely, if you decide to skip to the final fortress straight after the intro stage without fighting any Mavericks, then you're guaranteed the bad ending, which also makes sense. This just seems like a common sense change, and makes the game feel much more satisfying for me to play through. My ability to play as Zero from beginning to end if I want is no longer dependent on RNG, thank goodness. They've rebalanced the game too. The X vs Zero fight is more challenging, for example, and the submarine and Duff McWhalen stage is faster, yet more powerful. There are some nice smaller changes as well. They've added in removed voice clips from the Japanese version and even replaced the US title screen art with the, in my opinion, superior Japanese title art. The patch even changes McWhalen's theme to his superior beta version, along with adding an unused stage select music track that now plays when you reach the Sigma Fortress, which I think is a nice touch. They even changed the font in the cutscenes to be less blurrier and easier to read, which is a change I didn't even know I wanted until I saw it. Oh, and speaking of the cutscenes, holy crap, you can actually skip them now! But best of all, Alia is now optional. You can turn her off, leave her off, and pretend she doesn't exist. And she just won't bother you. Not even that optional tutorial stage. The game no longer seemingly randomly comes to a grinding halt, and it just flows so much better. It feels more fast-paced, more action-y, more fun, more like, well, a good Mega Man X game. I guess that's my verdict. Vanilla Mega Man X5? Subpar. But Mega Man X5, after applying this improvement patch that takes it to a nice spa, works some knots out of its back, and even gives it some advice on spicing things up in the bedroom, wonderful. I'm even linking it in the description below, because if you're doing a run of the X series, then this is a definitive way to play X5. Patched Mega Man X5 truly is a fantastic end to the Mega Man X series. But that wasn't the end, was it? Okay, I know this video's gone on long enough, but I know I'm going to be feeling a little Mega Man'd out for a while after this goes out. So I briefly want to touch on the Mega Man X timeline itself. And if that doesn't interest you, then go watch another video like the one linked in the iCard above. This is me going full on Mega Man nerd. So to recap the story up to X5, in the year 2000X, Dr. Light and Dr. Wily have a falling out because Dr. Light was a dick to Wily in college. Wily then decides to pursue a life of crime and villainy and comes up with an evil scheme to take over the world by stealing and reprogramming 6 of Dr. Light's robots. This leads to the creation of the original Mega Man, who is just a converted house robot, and then the events of the classic Mega Man series ensue. Now, sometime during the classic series, like time shortly after Mega Man 8 if we consider the 2 arcade games canon, Dr. Wily begins working on a new robot who can think for himself, and is also programmed with a spreadable virus named Zero. His purpose is to kill Mega Man, and continue Wily's nefarious work after he's long dead. All the while, Dr. Light has begun creating Mega Man X, his final, greatest creation. Like Zero, X can also think for himself, and is not bound by Isaac Asimov's 3 rules of robotics. But unlike Zero, he is intended to be a beacon of good and justice. Sometime after the end of the classic series, X is sealed away by Light into a capsule, which is set to run a 30-year testing program on him to instill good morals, so that he can usher in an era of peace between robots and mankind. Hopefully. During that time, Light dies, and his lab somehow becomes buried in a war, and X isn't retrieved from his capsule until well over 100 years later by Dr. Kane, who, along with an archaeology team, discovers the remains of Dr. Light's lab. Now, in the years between X being sealed away and being discovered by Dr. Kane, Zero has been unleashed on the world by Dr. Wily, and it's catastrophic. It's a series of events that are never explained. All that is known is that it's assumed that Zero kills all of the characters from the classic Mega Man series, save for classic Mega Man himself, who Dr. Wily had captured and turned evil through time travel shenanigans at some earlier point, but I went over that in another video. It's weird. It's unknown how Zero himself gets sealed away, but he is ultimately sealed away until sometime after X is discovered by Dr. Kane. And speaking of X, after his discovery, Kane decides to create clones of X to coexist with and hopefully aid humanity. As there are clones of X who can think and feel for themselves and also aren't bound by the rules of robotics, they are called Reploids. One of these Reploids is Sigma. Yeah, big bad asshole Sigma, who in the beginning was actually a kindly leader of the Maverick Hunters. Well, until he discovers Zero, who has awakened from his slumber and is going around what I'm assuming the wreckage of Dr. Wily's lab. A fight ensues and Sigma and Zero duke it out. That is until Sigma shatters the shard on Zero's forehead, which unleashes the original Zero virus, which then infects Sigma. That's how Sigma turns into the comically evil villain we all know and tolerate. This then leads to the events of the Mega Man X series, which flows, well, pretty straightforwardly, and were supposed to culminate in X5. But then they just didn't. Okay, small spoiler warning because we're about to talk about some major events that happen after X5. Also, fair warning, there's a good bit of speculation coming up. According to my personal headcanon, the Mega Man X series follows a split timeline a la Zelda. And it splits at 2 key points. Once at the end of X5, and once at the end of X6. Let me know if there are any flaws in my logic in the comments below, but as someone who has played the classic X and Zero series a lot, though granted the Zero series far less than the classic and X games, these are my thoughts. The split that happens after X5 basically shows that, yeah, technically any of the endings in X5 could serve as an effective end to the X series. Either Zero dies and X forgets him, or Zero dies but X doesn't forget him and carries on his memory. And either of these endings can be canon in a technical sense because X6 makes the odd choice of combining both the good and bad endings from X5 for its story. It explains this in its opening cutscenes. In its version of X5's ending, Sigma is still defeated. Well, I mean, kind of. He comes back as a robotic zombie at the end of X6, but shh. That's a poorly written plot twist. Act surprised, damn it. Anyways, Sigma, for all we know, is defeated. Zero still ends up as a short-circuiting torso. X even takes a Z-Saber to honor his memory. Zero never goes Maverick and X never forgets about him. But the Eurasia colony still crashes into the Earth and wipes out most of humanity. The survivors are still forced to live underground while the Reploids clean up the destroyed surface. Oh, and also Dynamo is back for some reason. Anyways, Zero is presumed dead at the beginning of X6. And there's one ending where you beat the game as X, and X never learns that Zero wasn't actually dead. But also, in this ending, it's revealed that Zero was alive all along and just hiding in the background. This kind of leads to the same place that X's good ending in X6 leads, which happens if you unlock Zero during normal gameplay. By the way, he apparently just hid himself while he repaired himself. Do you smell that? That's the smell of bringing back a dead character for the sake of fan appeal. I remind you once again that, at the end of X5, Zero was nothing more than a short-circuiting torso. Anyways, in this good ending, X-Zero and Aelia all make a pact to continue to restore the devastated Earth and make it livable for humanity again. And, in my eyes, this is where the next split happens. Again, just according to my headcanon. What I'm getting at is that in either of X's endings in X6, the series can go down a path that leads to games where Zero is playable, just like X7 and X8, and finally in this path of the Mega Man X timeline, the RPG Mega Man X Command Mission. Now, it's important to note Command Mission, as it takes place in the year 22XX, around the same time that the Mega Man Zero series is supposed to take place. To me, I don't really see any way for Command Mission in the Zero series to make sense in the same timeline, since Zero is present in Command Mission. After all, the first Zero game begins with Zero having been asleep for over a century. That actually lines up really well with Zero's ending in X6. This involves Zero sealing himself away in a capsule to run tests on himself, just to make sure he won't turn Maverick as Dr. Wily intended. And the estimated time frame for this deep sleep, around a century. In short, the Mega Man X series follows 4 paths. Does Zero die at the end of X5? Does he turn Maverick? Does the space colony crash to Earth and X lose all memory of him? Or is the crash prevented and does X fight on towards a brighter future, remembering his fallen friend every day? Or is it a mix of these things? Was Zero only presumed dead at the end of X5? And does the space colony crash anyways, despite him not going Maverick? And then in X6, does X defeat Sigma and go off to help the world rebuild with help from Zero? Or does Zero defeat Sigma in X6 and decide it's best to seal himself away to make sure he won't go insane as Dr. Wily intended? And I know some people say, oh, but Zero's ending is supposed to take place way far in the future at the very end of the X series, but I still don't see how this could line up with, say, Command Mission still being canon. So those are a few potentially different canon paths, because again, my headcanon is that there's a split timeline. Now, which one do I think is the true quote-unquote timeline? Oh, in my opinion, just choose the answer to any of those questions I posed earlier, in whatever way makes you the happiest. Or, choose to answer none of them. Most folks don't play Mega Man X games for the story. This is a beloved series, made famous not by its storytelling, but by fast-paced platforming action based on wall climbing, dashing, and beating the crap out of big robotic animals. And maybe this makes me especially thankful then, that you can skip the cutscenes in the improved version of X5. X5 is a heck of an adventure, but goodness, am I glad to have experienced it. Also, before I go, the Sigma virus? More like the Ligma virus, am I right? Woo!